All right, let's get started for the day. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, today is just an instructor help day, so not really much going on as far as lecturing goes. I do want to point out a few things, though, that I noticed while grading your algae and shrimp reports. So I'm just going to show a few examples of some good quality work and maybe some not so good work. That way it can hopefully, help you in writing the report for the ones to come. So before we start, is there any questions about anything? There's nothing due this week. So next week is your sourdough and your iNaturalist report due, but there's nothing due this week. I've received a few assignments from you guys already from certain people in this class, but definitely nothing's due this week. So you don't have to turn anything in quite yet. Any other questions before I go through some of the examples? Cool. So let me share with you some of the things that I have noticed while grading these papers. First of all is the spacing. So this is a report I received from a student, and the report is only supposed to be 2 to 3 pages, but you have 5 pages maximum. So you can stretch it into 4 pages, no problem. And that does not include the tables or the graphs. That's strictly the text. So all this spacing here is really just unnecessary. You're losing a lot of space for you to actually write. So make sure you watch that. I mean, this is also double spaced, and it does not need to be double spaced. It can be single spaced if you need to fit in the report. So this is around, I think, what, 3 pages, 2 pages with text. Now, when we compare this one to this report where we have single spacing, there's not as much space in between the header and the first paragraph. We see that it's roughly the same length, but a lot more information is included. So mind your spacing. I don't know if the student was just trying to stretch into the 2 pages or what, but we also don't need all this up here. So I know my own name. I know the date you guys turned it in. I know what class you guys are in. We don't need all this up here. And make sure you guys got a good title here, one without errors in it. So, all right, and let's go through some of the introduction. So with this one, it says, throughout the duration of this lab, Artemia brine shrimp has added to the environment. My algae are in an observation of the bottom-up forces that were conducted. This study consists of bottom-up forces of the organism is constrained by what they utilize. In this context, it is the consumption of algae. So it's kind of setting up some sort of, bottom-up forces in this little environment that you've created. And then it goes on to discuss their hypothesis. Now, when we compare this to the other study, we see that in the beginning, in the introduction, each ecosystem consists of top-down and bottom-up forces that help regulate, structure, and organize it. The bottom-up regulation looks at limiting factors of ecosystems, while top-down regulation looks at factors that control death. These factors can have immense impact on trophic levels. One of the trophic levels it affects is primary producers. Algae is a primary producer that takes on carbon dioxide and light energy from the sun to produce chemical energy. So in this one, you have a logical progression of big picture ecosystem stuff all the way down to your study species of algae. So it's really logical. You've got bottom up, top down. It affects different trophic levels. Trophic levels we're looking at in this study is primary producers. Algae is a primary producer. A really logical stepwise outline of what you'll be looking at for the report. Whereas this study just jumps right into it, really given no context, just kind of goes what into bottom force up, barely even touches on it, and then boom, jumps into the hypothesis. So really make sure you guys are setting up your experiment through a logical progression of the background information in the introduction. Does that make sense? All right, now let's go to the discussion. So this discussion jumps off with, considering the end result of this experiment, it is safe to say the experiment was successful as both the Artemia and algae were able to increase in population. Well, according to their hypothesis, they can infer that the brine shrimp is added to the algae environment, the algae population will experience a significant decrease. So make sure we're relating the discussion to our hypothesis and to what we've set up in the previous sections. So this one is saying that the end result was successful because both the algae and the Artemia were able to grow. However, in their hypothesis, they stated that the algae should decrease. So they're contradicting themselves in this discussion here. Now, when we compare this to the discussion of this paper, in summation, my hypothesis that the algae population would decrease as the shrimp population would increase was correct. Boom, it's all there, it's done. Then they went further on to say that the results supported this hypothesis, and then they showed some numbers and some values. So when you want to state that your hypothesis was either supported or rejected, state why that is with your results, like they did in here. All right. And then they go on to discuss, we know that the relationship between the algae population and shrimp population is predatory play. Because of this, the brine shrimp were not included and the algae population increased. There we go. So now we've taken the results and related them back to what they mean based on the science that we introduced in our introduction. All right. So this overall paper is really nicely written, really well done. This is A quality work. So hopefully this little example here will help you guys set up for your future assignments to come. And then, of course, they included these really nice graphs and tables at the bottom. So you see this nice relationship here between the Secchi disk, or the measurements, millimeters in algae culture per day, and then as well as the brine shrimp. All right. So really nice inclusion of these graphs here as well for this paper. Any questions on what I just kind of discussed with you guys, and then moving forward with